just check the stats here for yourself. I think the most interesting part is the circus, how the ammo works, how to resupply it, and how much damage it deals. We need to check the trailer once more, jump into the details before we can assess this weapon. And we're gonna start this chapter with literally the first frame of the teaser. So this is Healing Waters Church. We're standing on the east side of the compound, and you can see it's bile weaver infested. The cool thing is, the map changed. And this is always very, very exciting when they do map changes, because map changes, they break up how the regular fighting goes, because you suddenly have new flank paths, new shortcuts, new ways to maybe quicker attack or quicker retreat, so this is amazing. It's also amazing that the bile weavers are coming back. I'm actually missing them a little bit. Maybe not the bile weaver nest. The bile weaver nest was a little bit excessive, but the regular bile weavers every here and there, that was freaking awesome. So let me just start the trailer real quick. There we go.
Welcome to my
channel. Watch it again because it's so amazing. We need 1, 2, 3 steps. Okay, so important. Apparently, it works like the trailer. Be balanced in PvP games. A good example was Marauders. The flamethrower in Marauders was just complete garbage. It dealt not enough damage, people just mowed you down while you set them on fire, and then they just heal up, and that's it. I think Battlefield did a good job with the flamethrower in Battlefield 1, if I remember correctly, but that was like a rare weapon, and I think it was a little bit harder to get than, for example, right now the Shredder and the Murder Circus. It's just hanging there, and almost nobody takes it right now, which is kind of sad. But that's not the topic from today. So will Crytek be able to balance the flamethrower? I saw already a lot of comments screaming OP, OP, OP. People also said Dragon Breath is gonna be OP, and we are pretty far away from that. And oh my god, the bow is OP, and I think we are pretty far away from the thing being OP. Good? Yeah, OP, not so much. The main issue that I see with the flamethrower is that if you survive it, you're probably down bars, right? Soft Skin will be pretty good. I don't know if Soft Skin will only help against the fire, or if it will reduce just flat the damage. How does it work when you have the wet effect, right? So when you're soaked after going splish splash and somebody shoots you with the flamethrower, can you catch fire? I mean, you should, because, well, it's a fucking flamethrower. Lots of question marks that we don't have an answer to yet. I personally think that high damage is okay when you have limitations on the weapon. And you do have a lot of limitations on this weapon. You have the preparation to get the gun ready. You do have the limited range. Like, even when the thing is fully cranked, it's not gonna be much further than Dragon Breath, the way it looked like. But maybe I'm wrong on this one. You do 2 bursts and the thing has no pressure anymore. And we don't know yet how quickly you deplete the weapon. For example, look at an Aftermath, right? Aftermath has 1 mag, and that's it. And once that's empty, if you have no ammo boxes, no backup, a long ammo weapon to share the ammo pool, the thing's fine. You're not doing that much with that. The next thing is, it's a little bit RNG to resupply that with oil barrels. I think what will happen a lot is people defending a lair will just shoot all the oil barrels that are in the compound. So if you show up with a flamethrower and there are no more oil barrels, tough luck, right? You can't resupply the thing then, because special ammo boxes don't work. Will you leave a compound to resupply your flamethrower if it empties as fast as an Aftermath, maybe? Ooh, difficult. So I think these flamethrower weapons, everybody will try it at the beginning. Okay, so the pick rate or people running around with flamethrowers the first couple of days will be insanely high because it's a freaking flamethrower. Will it be useless but super annoying for the enemy team? I mean, right now they blew up a lot of people with barrels, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do it with incendiary rounds too. And that's easier to resupply. However, people standing in the fire cone, they die very, very fast. Like, in 1 burst, 2 bursts, you're dead. And if that thing catches you by surprise, rip. To be fair though, in Hunt Showdown, TTK is insanely fast. So if a shotgun around the corner catches you by surprise, I said that already, you're dead. Random Winnie C headshot, high velocity, officer carbine headshot, you're dead. So, is the fast TTK of the flamethrower really an issue? I don't think so. Especially with the limitations that we actually have on the weapon. But you know what? We need to get more info first. We need to play that thing and then give it a week or two. And then I hope Crytek, if they overdid it, they're gonna rebalance it. To be fair though, a lot of the scarce weapons that they added lately, the Homestead, the Wildland, I mean the Wildland with Bleed was crazy good, but none of these scarce weapons are absolutely busted right now. I'm not getting the, you know, Shredder 1.0 vibes from that thing. With the flamethrower, a little bit difficult. Fire is always, it's a primal force, right? People are scared of fire, rightfully so, at least most of us. So when we see a flamethrower, we go like, dang. Let me know in the comment section what you think about the flamethrower. Stay civil though, and I hope we can test that thing very soon. And that's it for today. Nice. So I hope all of you had a good start into 2026. Especially these people, my patrons. Thank you very much for supporting me on Patreon. Extra hard just for you guys. Then I have the link tree here on the side. If you want to check out my social media platforms where I share a little bit my private life when I go skiing, hiking, shooting range and stuff like that, it's over there. And then more videos. Who would have guessed? I see you in the next one. Until then, have a good day. Bye.
You know somebody's sweating somewhere right now. I've never seen anything like this. Arc Raiders, one of the most popular and successful live service games that we saw released in 2025, has somehow, against all odds, retained 91% of its audience over 60 days. 91%. Do you have any idea how absurd that is? I'm sure some of you guys are sitting there like, that's not that big of a deal. There hasn't been a single game in the past 5 years that has been able to achieve that. Not a single one. At least not new releases. Live service has just been a hellscape. All these guys have been coming in to cash their checks, and while some of these guys have found success, most of them not so much. And the one constant that we have seen throughout this entire saga of all these guys coming out with these live service games is that, well, these audiences fall off, especially after the first couple of weeks, especially after the first month, and none of these guys have really been able to capture any of their peak. Yet Arc Raiders has, and it has for one very simple reason. Family. That usually goes at the end of the video. Community is the term that I'm looking for here. For all the money that these suits have been spending on research, on marketing, on their different live service things that they want to do, all the monetization and all that good stuff, all these guys have completely forgotten the one key ingredient, the most important thing about multiplayer games. People playing together. These guys have just been lost in the sauce of monetization and trying to perfect their games through those channels, that they have just completely lost sight of all of this. And I don't think that these guys have a shot at trying to compete with this game, because they simply just don't understand it. But today what I want to do is I want to talk about the continued success of Arc Raiders. I want to talk about how the least likely success of 2025 has now become one of the greatest successes of 2025, and now also probably going to be 2026. Why people are still playing this game, what people can learn from it, and why I think they never will. I need you guys to understand just how absurd this is. Arc Raiders released on October 30th. It hit its all-time peak of over 481,000 concurrent players on Steam over 2 weeks later on November 16th. And since then, for over 60 days, it has barely dipped. Even through the holidays, the game only briefly slipped under 300,000 players before climbing right back up to over 460,000, consistently holding over 90% of its audience from its peak. Oh, and Embark just now reported on January 4th that the game has broke its all-time concurrent player record across all platforms, with 3.2 million daily active users, while also breaking over 12 million copies sold. You absolutely love to see it. Now let's compare that to the launch of other live service games. In that same time frame, Battlefield 6 lost more than 80% of its players, declining steadily almost immediately after launch. Marvel Rivals did the exact same thing, shedding almost half of its concurrent player base in under a month.
Hope you're closed for the season, Raider. It's a good day for picking candleberries, but do beware of frostbite.
Hello? Howdy! Hey, don't shoot!
Hello. Wait, dude, wait, talk to me, wait, I'll help you, wait, where are you, I'll revive you, wait, I have a defib, I won't kill you, where are you, hello, Oh. He died. Oh god.
Howdy! Don't shoot!
Hello. Howdy.
Hey, hello! Howdy!
Hello. Yeah. Hey, good luck with the loot. Oh god. Yeah, thanks man. Thank you. Being chased. Yeah, I see it. Too many. Too many of these. Wait.
Oh yeah. I got something for you, man. You need a blueprint or something?
No. Where are you?
Don't need nothing.
Really?
Okay, man. I'm gonna leave you, man.
Over here.
Everything is looted here, man.
Oh, thanks. Hello. Welcome. Oh wow.
An Ark orbiter is en route. The safe window is closing. You have 10 minutes to return to Speranza. I repeat, 10 minutes.
Hello? Howdy! Don't shoot!
Can I help you? Thanks, Raider.
Who cares?
Helldivers 2 followed that exact same arc, a strong peak and then a steady, predictable decline. And I guess I should mention Call of Duty here, but honestly, Call of Duty Black Ops 7 landed with such a whimper that it almost doesn't even feel fair to bring it up. Around 100,000 concurrent players on Steam at launch, despite that launcher also housing Warzone and their entire back catalog. And within weeks, that game had already dropped by 50,000 concurrent players. And at this point, you know what? Bringing them up just feels less like analysis and a lot more like me just throwing a spike strip in front of a short bus. There hasn't been a single live service game that has launched in the past 2 years, honestly probably closer to 5, that has been able to maintain this kind of momentum for this long. The pattern has always been the same, a huge launch and then a sharp drop off in the first month and then another drop after that, and the game just finds its smaller core audience or it just finds the door on the way out. Now, I'm not saying that Arc Raiders is never going to level off. It probably will to some degree, but what I am saying is that no other game has sustained for this long, and it's not unreasonable to think that it's not going to keep going, because the only games that have been able to maintain this kind of static momentum are the absolute pillars of this industry: Fortnite, Counter-Strike, Grand Theft Auto, etc. I'm not saying that Arc Raiders is going to reach those heights. I'm saying that it's going down the same road, and right now, this game is holding on to people in a way that we simply haven't seen for a really long time. So what the hell is going on? Well, honestly, a lot more than usual. A lot of it's unique, and a lot of it's very unique specifically to Arc Raiders. It obviously helps that this year delivered one of the weakest entries that we've ever seen in the Call of Duty franchise, a franchise that normally sells tens of millions of copies. It's going to be lucky to clear 10 million this time around, and Battlefield 6 technically beat out Call of Duty out of the gate. It did so while also desperately trying to be Call of Duty, and that result ends up being a game that has stumbled out of the door with convoluted menus, too few maps, absurdly long and borderline unachievable weapon progression, no static servers, and a whole pile of other issues. Arc Raiders just didn't have any of those problems. It was just a better game out of the box. It's a stark contrast to its competition. It launched more refined. It had a clearer and more original identity. It felt like a new game because it actually was a new game. It played better. It had content waiting in the wings. And most importantly, it cost half as much. Now, I've been away for a bit, so I haven't really been able to fully dig into this yet. I'll probably do that in another video.
Imagine a game costing 40 bucks
right now. The short version is the median price of the best-selling games on Steam has cratered over the past 2 years. Publishers keep insisting that prices have to go up while players have been quietly spending less, not just buying less games, but just paying less per game. And AAA has been asking for more while delivering less, and better competition has been charging less, which is why this median price has now gone down almost 20% with no signs of slowing down. If anything, it's accelerating. So when a game like Arc Raiders shows up as a new IP, fresh, distinct, genuinely accessible, more fun than anything else that's in the space, and only asks for $40, the question becomes unavoidable for a lot of players today. Why the hell would you want to buy a game from Electronic Arts or Activision for $70 when you get something far better for $40? This has just been so satisfying to watch. These companies have spent years running their reputations into the dirt. Companies that didn't just lose trust, they have cultivated an audience that actively prays for their failure. And then we have Arc Raiders that just walks in and just starts eating this market alive. Is it really that hard to understand why? Do these guys even have competition anymore? Because at least from where I'm standing, the games industry is basically open season. Like, am I the only one that's over here that just can't get over how repetitive and samey everything in this industry has become? It's just the same games over and over again with the same name, and sometimes maybe with a new one, but very rarely do we ever actually see anything new. It's robbed this industry of mystery, of excitement. Everything is just so damn predictable because these publishers have treated their games, their franchises, and most importantly, their customers like garbage, to the point that now all it takes to stand out is just put in a little effort and a fair price. That's it. I mean, look at how brain dead this cycle has become. EA just watched what happened with Call of Duty Black Ops 7. They saw the backlash. They saw the reaction to the phoned-in AI-generated microtransactions. They saw their player numbers crater. and then they turn around and do the exact same thing. This is just so embarrassing to me. I think that's a huge reason why Battlefield 6 has fallen off so hard. Once the honeymoon phase ended, at least for a lot of players, and myself included, most of us just woke up to the same realization. This is just new boss, same as the old boss. What do we expect? It's EA. It's in the name. Another publisher that doesn't listen, that takes its own audience for granted and barely seems to understand its own games anymore, let alone the genre that it's supposed to be leading. I mean, I guarantee that these guys have no clue as to why Arc Raiders is so accessible or so inescapable at this point. You are seeing this game everywhere right now. It's dominating Twitch. It's all over social media. There's tons of clips. It's all over YouTube. It's in comment sections. It's launching content creator careers overnight. Peanut is on an absolute tear right now, and that's not by accident. It's because this game refuses to feel the same twice. Every single player plays differently. Every lobby has its own rhythm. Every raid has its own outcome, its own story. It makes Arc Raiders so ridiculously watchable. And I don't even normally watch people play games. And that's all I've been doing lately. I've been watching a lot of Summit and Peanut too. And it's for one simple reason. You never know what's going to happen next. Not because of some scripted spectacle that they put into the game, but because of people, the conversations, the unexpected alliances, the betrayals, the dumb jokes, the moments that were not designed, were not optimized, and definitely were not monetized. This is multiplayer games returning to being social and feeling like a community. I talked about this back when Helldivers 2 first blew up. That game has definitely struggled with its direction since then, but it accidentally exposed something that I think this industry just doesn't seem to see, or maybe they just don't understand. Players are just not looking to be as competitive anymore. They're looking to cooperate. They want to be social. They want to feel like they're a part of something bigger than themselves. We've spent years now drowning in hyper-competitive design. Team versus team, you versus everyone, games built around you playing as an individual instead of belonging to a group, and I just think that players are exhausted of it. I know that I am. Games are just less social than they used to be. Society is more isolated than it's ever been. Lockdowns accelerated it. AI is now accelerating it even further, and none of that is natural. It cuts against how we are wired as people. So watching players push back right now, not just in games, but everywhere, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think people want community. I think that's why a game like this is popping off right now. They want meaning. They want to belong to something, and well, Arc Raiders represents that. Helldivers 2 definitely tapped into that briefly. They had the shared war, the memes, the factions, bot divers, bug divers, the collective narrative, and instead of learning from that, the industry is just moved on. They just completely ignored it. Not because the signal wasn't there, but just because, I don't know, people just didn't understand it. And that's just the difference with Arc Raiders. This game was built from the ground up to be social. PvP exists in the game, but it's optional. The world gives you context. You are survivors, remnants, people that are trying to claw back the surface of the earth. You meet strangers, you make friends, you form alliances, you betray them, you gather across the map and play instruments, you goof around, you tell stories that no designer could have ever planned for. These players are not being herded like cattle like we see in almost every other game. They are being given space. And that's why Arc Raiders didn't just succeed. I think this game is reminding people what multiplayer games used to feel like. It's like this industry just collectively forgot that the minute it went mainstream was with Halo 2. That game was so insanely social. It was the LAN parties, it was the split screen. Yes, the game had online multiplayer, but people were playing that game together. Even if you were fighting other teams, you were still playing that game together. I mean, some of the lobbies can be a little bit toxic, but still, there was a culture, there was a personality there that you just don't really see that in games anymore. And I think that's the soul of online multiplayer. I think it's the soul of multiplayer games. I think it's the soul of games in general. And I think that we tapped back into that a little bit briefly with Helldivers 2, and now we're seeing that come back yet again with Arc Raiders. And I think that says something about where players are at right now. These competitive multiplayer games are miserable to exist inside. Partly because of streaming, because I definitely think that, you know, competitive multiplayer games, people are trying to make careers out of playing these games in front of other people, and because of that, the skill ceiling has gone through the roof, making them just absolutely terrible for anybody that is a casual player, and these games need to be made for casual players. But Arc Raiders is a PvP game, but it doesn't feel like one. It feels like a game that is actively opening up as you're playing it. It doesn't feel like I'm being dropped into another anonymous multiplayer meat grinder. That's the thing that is so frustrating with Battlefield 6, is that they didn't realize any of this social stuff. They still don't see it even now. And these guys didn't bring back persisting lobbies. That's the backbone of Battlefield. That's what makes Battlefield Battlefield for a lot of people. And they just left it behind. You know, I've been watching the docu-series for Arc Raiders, the making of the game. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that this game, from the start, was supposed to be a PvE game. So that's the way that it was built. And it was the proximity chat, it was the events, it was all these different things that they had to bring players together to these big moments and things like that. It was the communication, it was the cooperation, all that stuff was there from the very start. So when they dropped PvP on top of it, well, it didn't collapse underneath it because they already had that solid social foundation, that solid social spine that the game needed, and I think that's the secret here. It's funny to me. This industry has been chasing these bigger and bigger audiences. How can we make our audiences even bigger? And a lot of it's been through mostly them trying to feign accessibility through means of let's make let's make boy games for girls and girl games for boys. None of that stuff matters. The best way to be able to grow this industry, to be able to grow your games, is to return to its roots. To remember why people play these games, what we get out of playing these games, not what you can squeeze from us when we play them. But the problem is that this industry has been so optimized for that purpose that I don't think these guys have any shot at ever chasing a success like this. I swear I'm going to end up doing a full video on this at some point. I already have it outlined. I have my thoughts on it because so much of this conversation has been hijacked by culture war noise more than anything else, social justice talking points, diversity checklists, personal ideologies being mistaken for creative direction. And what gets completely lost in all that process is what accessibility is actually supposed to mean. Originally, it was simple. Accessibility means ease of access, lowering the barriers so that people could approach the game without undermining what the game is itself, not flattening it, not diluting it, just creating more ways to get into it. Somewhere along the way, that definition got hijacked. Over the years, accessibility stopped being about the player experience and started being about profit margins and audience capture. Marketing teams got involved, executives got involved, and that term got twisted into this blunt instrument used to chase audiences that are outside of the game's core rather than serving the people that are actually playing the game. Language change, censorship, duller narratives, lower difficulty, sanded down edges, games engineered to offend no one, say nothing, and stand for nothing. These androgynous, focus-tested products with no identity because identity might push somebody away. The fundamental mistake that a lot of these studios are making is that they focused on identity instead of accessibility through play. A game that's made for everyone is a game made for no one, but a game anybody can play is exactly that. It's a game anyone can play. That distinction matters, and almost everybody has lost sight of that, except for Embark Studios, because Arc Raiders executes on that distinction almost flawlessly. One of the game's biggest strengths, honestly, probably its biggest one, is that radically different types of players can exist in the same space. Every single raid has variety, every lobby feels different, and that diversity of play style, not identity, is what's keeping the game feeling fresh. At the highest level, it's coming down to aggression, players who want to cooperate and those who want to dominate, and Arc Raiders is now making that a core balance of their entire game. In an article from IGN written by Wesley Inpool titled "Arc Raiders Dev Confirms It Recently Added Aggression-Based Matchmaking, but It's Not a Full Science," Poole writes, Arc Raiders player versus environment versus player gameplay has resulted in a number of viral clips showing how friendly encounters can quickly devolve into a fight to the last. Yes, you can play solo or in parties of up to 3, working together as a team to progress through the game. However, other players are a constant threat. This has sparked a vociferous debate within the community about the etiquette that is formed in-game, with a retired pro gamer going viral for relentlessly killing casual Arc Raiders players. It turns out Arc Raiders will lean into your playstyle when it comes to matchmaking. This aggression-based matchmaking, however, is not an exact science. Patrick Soderlund, CEO of Embark Studios, told GamesBeat in a recent interview/playthrough of the game. Obviously, first it's skill-based, of course, Soderlund said of Arc Raiders matchmaking. Then you have solos, duos, and trios. And also, since a week ago or so, we introduced a system where we matchmake based on how prone you are to PvP or PvE. So if your preference is to do PvE and have less conflict with players, you'll get more matched up with similar players. Obviously, it's not a full science. I cannot stress how genius this is, and I'm really interested to see how this all works out. I'm sure it's not perfect, nothing ever is, but honestly, recently I've had no issue with any of the lobbies that I've been put into, and That's because the game is not trying to shove everybody into the same box. It's just paying attention to how you actually play and responding to that. It's moving with you instead of fighting you. And the most important part is nothing is locked in. This is not a this or that situation. A player that normally goes hard on PvP can just decide they want to start looting or messing around or fighting bots or whatever they want to do. A player that usually avoids conflict can suddenly feel that tension spike and decide that they want to go and start fighting other people. Those moments are going to happen naturally, and the game is not going to freak out when they do it. It's going to allow them to do whatever they want. This game is not going to feel like a script. It just feels like people. Intent changes, mood shift, situations escalate, cooperation turns into conflict, and then sometimes right back again. It's messy in the same way that real interactions are messy, and that's where these encounters really start to feel real instead of manufactured, unless, well, that's exactly what you're trying to aim for. Then I guess you could probably try to make the game feel that way if you just go down one single lane. This is real accessibility. The game stays exactly what it is. Nothing gets dulled down. Nothing gets flattened. You are not being forced down a narrow path or told how you're supposed to play. You decide. You do whatever you want. And that's why so many players lately have been pushing back against how AAA has been treating and talking about accessibility, because their version is not giving you a choice. You do not opt in. You just deal with it. What Embark is doing right now with Arc Raiders, it's the opposite. The game just adjusts to you. It respects what you're trying to do. It treats you like a person. And once you realize that, once you see that this game is built around players first and systems that are built around players first, it becomes really hard not to notice just how different everything else is by comparison. Over here we have Arc Raiders and Embark Studios that are spending their time building entirely new matchmaking systems, not to boost spending, not to pad engagement, but instead to just make the game a better experience for the people that are playing the game right now. That is what they chose to refine. That's where their money is going. That's where their effort is right now. Now, what is the rest of the industry working on? Well, Activision just renewed a patent designed to push microtransactions through matchmaking. I mean, that's great, right? Pairing less skilled players with highly skilled players that are decked out in microtransactions, deliberately framing those cosmetics as the difference between winning and losing, giving players the ability to inspect skins through kill cams and plays the game moments, all nudging them towards the store. Oh, and they got another really good one too. A patent that modifies gameplay and content based on what you have open on a second monitor. Totally normal stuff. Absolutely no way that could ever go sideways. None of this is complicated. It's all perspective and motivation. The games industry is split into two currents right now. One that is moving towards the players and one that is moving away from them. And a huge chunk of the AAA space is being optimized to be the most hostile, manipulative experience possible, where all the upside flows to the publisher and all the friction just lands on us players. For a long time, I wanted to believe that this entire thing, I just wanted to blame it all on executives. And yeah, these suits are always going to do what suits do, optimize the business, optimize for money, but the uncomfortable truth is that a lot of these developers are just going along with it. They have no spine. They're not pushing back at all. They're just cashing their check and moving on. And then we look at Arc Raiders, and it's a completely different story. This game was a $40 box price, an absurdly fair ask for what they delivered. A complete and cohesive game, free access to their Raider decks, which is essentially their battle passes, optional cosmetics that actually feel optional, cosmetics that you can earn by playing, a new map, new events, a winter event, free currency that they handed out during the holidays, and at no point has this game ever felt like it's standing there with the tans out. There have been no pop-ups, no constant reminders, no pressure. It's just a game that respects you. And the part that...
Let me see.
than ever before!
You fool! They need the weapon! The world is at stake!
Enough! What? No! Daughter! I will fix this. The Karui way!
The weapon is ready. It was sickened and mapped quickly. You must stop.
If you ask any World War II veteran, they'll probably tell you that combat is exactly like you see in the movies. Right, Jared?
Absolutely. Not quite.
No, maybe not so much. No war movie could ever fully capture what it's really like to fight on the front lines, but some movies get it much closer than others. Today, we're going to look at some of the most famous and infamous combat scenes from World War II films and see which ones got it right, which ones missed out on some things, and which ones weren't even close. I'm joined today by Dr. Jared Frederick, host of the Real History YouTube channel. And Jared, you've reviewed many of the films that we'll look at today. You've done full, in-depth historical reviews that you can go watch on his channel. You've also authored some books that cover some of the real battles that these films depict here, and you've done all kinds of research. So I would say that short of having a veteran from each one of these battles sitting with us to tell us how it really went, you might be the next best thing.
Well, thank you. That's very endearing of you to say that. I'll also add that I've personally hiked some of the battlefields where some of these scenes take place, and if you want to understand a battle, that's truly the best way to comprehend what transpired there.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know if I'm worthy of the praise that you just gave me, but I'll offer the best context that I can.
So we'll go through, I have 10 scenes here. I tried to keep it to ground combat, and I tried to choose a variety. So some newer films, some older films, so we get a bit of a mix here, and we can go through and do a little tier list and assign each movie a tier based on its historical accuracy. And it might be hard to do, but let's try to remove the scene from the context of the movie.
All right.
So some of these movies are highly controversial. We'll try to forget all of that and just look at their depiction of World War II combat. So before we get into that, Jared, why don't you tell me some of the things that you're going to look out for in these scenes? What makes a good war movie combat scene that's accurate, and what are some red flags that you'll look out for as we watch these?
Yeah, I think a really good foundation to start with, when the 1945 movie Story of G.I. Joe was made, they gathered troops from the 36th and 45th, as well as 1st Infantry Divisions, and brought them on as technical advisors. And they compiled a list of do's and don'ts, which I think would benefit all filmmakers who wish to make a war movie, and specifically a World War II movie. And really, what it comes down to is doing your utmost to resist the tropes. You know, there's the squad dynamic, there's the over-the-top special effects, there's the incorporation of unnecessary romantic subplots, but then there's the other more human things as well, conveying the humor in order to interpret the camaraderie. War movies should also kind of be a love story, and it's not a love story between man and woman, let's say, but it's a love story among comrades who are going through the worst times in their lives. To survive a war requires love, as much as it does hate and anger. And those were some of the nuanced things that veterans of the Mediterranean suggested that Hollywood filmmakers embrace. So in addition to the technical details, does the landscape look right? How are the uniforms? To what extent do these films lean into those tropes that veterans encourage be avoided? Those are the sorts of little things that I look at.
All right, let's get into it and start by looking at our first film.
Let's do it.
Band of Brothers, Union Retreat Scene.
Schmitz! MG-42! 10 o'clock! Nail 'em! Fire!
Jared, this is Band of Brothers. This is our bread and butter.
It is.
What thoughts do you have on this scene in particular and its portrayal of combat?
I really like this scene because it shows a sort of crossroads style of urban combat that we don't often see in a lot of World War II movies. It expresses the point that civilians and homes and communities are trapped in the maelstrom of all of this. And as Webster's character points out, you know, these were idyllic little Dutch villages where the likes of Vincent van Gogh had, you know, once painted landscapes. These are incredibly beautiful places. But just to give a little bit of context in leading up to all of this, 101st Airborne Division had just moved through Eindhoven, and 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment kind of haltingly moved onward, and they were pushing toward the town of Helmond. And so in my book, Hang Tough, which looks at the experiences and letters of Dick Winters, he actually describes what we're seeing here in this scene. Company E was pinned down so quickly that we found it.
But I thought nothing of it. Figured he was having a good time.
They have a worthy message. It is the
Bloody bastards. They've always been a bit spooky, but I didn't know it went this far. And then there's Makuru. Oh, what a day. We've served on a few ships together now. I always try to look out for her. Gave her. We Kalgurans can be a bit hard-headed when it comes to foreigners. When she passed the captain's challenge with a unanimous vote, I was right proud. Her rescue should be our #1 priority. We owe her that. My best recipes. I can't cook what I haven't got now.
water and cabbage keeps a man alive.
Trusty cabbage soup. A staple aboard the Aurora, May. A tradition, really.
We should pick up.
Look, it ain't my... If you want fancy, go to the King's March Tavern. Where to? All right. Let's go then. There you go. Something's not right. Not right at all. Blood fever. Madness. Righty. Please, do whatever you can to save Makuru.
No, not like this.
This must end! I'm sorry, my brother. This was Tavakai's to protect. Now it burns by his hand. No more. Weakling! What have you learned?
Welcome. What can I do for you? No farewell.
This is mercy.
It almost impossible to move. Most of the men were pinned down in ditches by the side of the road. We had only a few buildings that we could use as cover to move around and set up some return fire. And then I go on to say, the paratroopers thwarted a relentless tide of German attacks and a series of firefights that raged until nightfall. The GIs heaved their wounded into trucks brought up by Lieutenant Nixon, which we see depicted in the film, and thereafter disengaged from the fight. So one thing that Band of Brothers does is that I'd say it gives us this really good snapshot of these famous moments of combat. You get a really condensed version of what happened, whether it be Breakcourt Manor, which in actuality was like a 3-hour fight that they condensed down into about 15 minutes.
Right.
And you kind of get the same thing at Noonan here. You know, we don't see any nighttime combat. We don't see them, digging into the tree line at night or anything like that. But it really does a good job at capturing the essence that characterized the fighting here in the Netherlands in September 44. I'd say Band of Brothers scores high in this regard because Tom Hanks and Dick Winters had many, many heartfelt conversations as they were planning out the production.
And everything we see here, from the uniforms, the implementation of the different weapons, we see some rifle grenades being used at times. Even the deaths and things like that are unceremonious and very realistic. There's not the big fiery explosions or anything. It's a very realistic combat scene from a visual sense. I think we're ready to rate this one.
Okay.
I think for me, we're starting out with an S-tier combat scene.
Yes, I would agree.
Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page.
None of them will be perfect, but as far as we can get,
it's hard to do much better than that. Before we move on to this next clip, let me just remind you about the M1 carbine promotion that I'm working on with fanofthem.com. So make sure to check that out. Click the link in the description to go to fanofthem. Let's move on to the next one. This one is one that might be a bit controversial, but let's take a look at Enemy at the Gates, the Soviet charge scene. All right. Definitely a different direction than what we just saw in Band of Brothers.
Yes.
But there's still some redeeming qualities.
There
here.
are some, yes.
I think one of the biggest things that stands out to me here, they're trying to portray that idea of meat waves, sending a huge wave of soldiers into battle to overwhelm the enemy. It doesn't matter what happens to these soldiers. We're the Soviet army. We have 1 million of them. We'll just send them at the Germans until they give up. How accurate is that idea in general?
Yeah, and I'll start off by saying that this is a movie that we have reviewed in its entirety, much like Band of Brothers here on Real History, so I welcome you to check that out if you're interested in the Eastern Front. But one of the really problematic things here is that it gives this false impression that the Soviet Union is just really ill-supplied. Several years into the war at this point, the notion that half of the men are going into battle without rifles and they're just given a clip of ammunition as they head into the maelstrom in this haphazard, full-blown charge. No one's wearing helmets. They don't have equipment.
Even the German defenders are packed together. There's one small barricade with as many guys as they could fit. It looks great on camera, but in reality...
And that's a common trap that filmmakers fall into because in reality, when soldiers are spaced out, you can't capture everybody on screen then.
Right.
And so filmmakers want to get the biggest bang for their buck, and they want to show as many people as possible to capture the scale and grandeur of a scene. But it leads to these sort of misleading interpretations.
Right, where we have,
much like we see
surrounded
here.
by buildings with great vantage points they could fire from, and instead they're in the middle of the street.
Yeah, nor are people being executed in mass for retreating. Of course, some people were made example of, and some people were punished, but not on such a widespread wholesale slaughter.
And how do you feel about, here we see the Soviets, they're running directly towards the machine gun position, out in the open, to do this mass charge. What do you feel about that?
No attempt to maneuver. Not even Civil War soldiers were dumb or anything like that in many instances. So that's one thing that war movies repetitively fail to get, in that there's no attempt to convey the complexity of maneuvering or outfoxing the enemy.
Okay, I think we're ready to rate this one.
I'd give this one a C.
I think I'm comfortable with that as well. I would be, I think maybe it could get a B in some books, but it does include, I think, my understanding of Soviet uniforms isn't quite on par with U.S. ones, but it does seem like, for the most part, they have some accurate weaponry. They have some...
It's not great.
Yeah,
but I give it a C because there's some really great set dressing. It really shows the horror and the crudiness of urban combat that was Stalingrad.
Yeah.
And so it does give you a sense of immersion that I think is helpful.
It does, and even though maybe they didn't capture some of the details of the assault there, but the magnitude of it and these soldiers yelling and running into battle, that certainly did happen at times, maybe not just running out in the open towards a machine gun position without a weapon in your hands, but things like that did happen, and they're trying to convey the scale of those assaults, and I appreciate that at least. Now let's move on to another movie that we'll have a lot to say about. This next one is Hacksaw Ridge, the Battle of Hacksaw Ridge scene. That certainly gives us some things to talk about.
Oh yeah, I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is just Hollywood nonsense. With the big fiery explosions, the human shield.
Oh.
It's just, everything about it is so surface level, and even the uniforms are so cookie cutter. So go ahead, tell us some of your thoughts.
Oh the part where his comrade picks up the half blown up corpse of one of his comrades and uses it as a shield is one of the most outlandish things ever in a war movie. A weapon that weighs like 24 pounds, it's heavy, you need kind of both hands to operate it.
Good luck holding it in that position even when it's not being fired.
And nor could I think of any soldier that would do that to one of his fallen brethren.
Right.
That was a scene that really grated on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean the kind of lackluster uniformity of the uniforms, where Fury excels in kind of showing diverse personalities of what people are wearing and using. There's like you said, just a cookie cutter sort of formula. Everyone's all bunched together. Once again, no attempt to show a sort of any accurate tactical maneuvering or anything like that. All in all, it comes across as really cartoonish.
It does.
It's so excessive in its desire to show this major bloodletting.
Yeah.
That it becomes a point of distraction rather than clarity.
And about the uniforms, you mentioned that. I know sometimes when I point things like that out, people say, oh, you know, you're nitpicking. Who cares if they had exactly the right uniform features and everything like that? But in my opinion, the soldiers here, whether you know the specific type of uniform and whether you know all the details of their kit, they look like they're wearing a costume. They don't look like soldiers.
Yeah.
Like in Fury, you look at those guys with great costume design and it looks like they're really there doing what they're portraying. But here, it looks like a bunch of guys in costume.
It does look like Halloween costumes.
Yeah, the
Good
special
quality.
effects are over the top. Everything about it's just unrealistic.
Yeah.
What's your rating on this one?
You know, I was leaning toward B because I do think there's a lot of fantastic cinematography in these scenes. I think the slow motion shots very effective. Historically, culturally speaking,
yeah,
we're in C territory.
And Jared, I kind of have specific beef with Hacksaw Ridge because this movie came out when I was in high school, and for a lot of my peers, it was kind of their first exposure.
This shaped their view of the war, probably.
Yeah, some things, Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan, were kind of before their time. So this was their first big, exciting war movie. And they would talk to me about it, and it was just such a disappointment when I saw it. Like, this is what my generation is seeing as a depiction of how these events unfolded. I think I feel more comfortable with this as a C tier movie. All right. Okay, so with that wrapped up, let's move on to our next movie here, and this I think will also have a lot to say about, staying in a similar realm, still in the Pacific Theater here. Letters from Iwo Jima, Marine landing scene. All right, a very iconic sequence there.
Absolutely.
Jared, I'd like to hear your thoughts first on the setting here, because you've been to Iwo Jima. So how did they do? How's their depiction?
Yes, and I spent 8 very memorable hours on Iwo Jima, hiking from the airfield to the top of Mount Suribachi, down, back, across the beach, and back to the airfield. And I must say, this movie excels in really capturing the topography. There's the iconic black ash, and even for the CGI scenes where Mount Suribachi's in the background, it just really looks the part. They did their homework. Some of the bunkers and sandbag emplacements that we see here are a little bit more conspicuous than what they actually would have been on Iwo Jima, but that's for establishing, you know, a context for the audience. But this movie just does really great, as does its companion piece, Flags of Our Fathers, that looks at the American perspective of the battle and the famous flag raising atop Suribachi. Here too, they really relied on a lot of period photographs and footage. The beaches were as congested as we see here. Kuribayashi waited until the 4th or 5th wave of Marines were ashore, so the beach was full, and so he could maximize his firepower as they were funneling in. Much like the movie Das Boot, it allows us to empathize with the enemy. We don't support or agree with the enemy, but at least it shows them in human terms that we can somewhat relate to. They aren't presented as a sort of caricature. And so that's really effective filmmaking when a director is able to do that, allowing you to empathize with your enemy. And Letters from Iwo Jima does it in fantastic fashion.
So as far as the rating, how do you feel? For me, I would say I would probably put this in A tier. I think it doesn't go up and above and beyond. There were still maybe some little Hollywood artifacts in there, but I think accuracy all around.
I would likewise give it an A.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that. Let's
yes, very well done.
Yeah, Letters from Iwo Jima, the Marine landing scene, we'll put that one in the A tier. All right, let's move on to our next film clip and see if that one ends up in the A tier as well. We've had a lot of good movies so far. The 6888 opening battle scene. Wow, what a piece of shit. Why did they even feel like they had to include this scene in the movie? I mean,
to set the stage, give you a sense of the odds, a stake of the consequences. But this is undoubtedly one of the worst combat scenes I've ever seen.
It is.
And, it resembles World War I trench warfare. It's just just inconceivably bad.
Through the air from these explosions.
This relies on all of the tropes.
All of them.
That we seek to avoid, or we should seek to avoid. P-51 Mustangs that are 20 feet above the ground, strafing.
I also don't understand, I mean, we see the guys in the trench, and then inexplicably, they're just all, the Americans and Germans are meeting on open ground and firing at each other from 10 feet away and engaging in hand-to-hand combat in an open field.
And of course, here on World War Wisdom, you've done a really good episode on how to properly wear your equipment so you aren't all draggedy ass, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, I wish they would have seen that video.
This is like horrible.
It's so bad.
You know, at least they got the 36th Infantry Division patch. A little tip of the hat to something correct. But the scenery's wrong, the equipment's wrong, the aircraft is wrong, the formations are wrong, the trenches are wrong. Pretty much everything is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, really. I just don't understand. I feel like they included this big battle scene with so many people just to check a box. We're a war movie. We got to have some war here. I think they could have accomplished the same effect to a better extent with a smaller, more intentionally constructed scene. But, you know.
Frankly, this was a battle that was filmed. Or recreated shortly thereafter by director John Huston.
Yeah.
And there's a really great documentary you can watch on YouTube, The Battle of San Pietro.
Do you think they saw that?
No, they didn't. They didn't. That's just the thing. They should have watched that to see what it actually looked like.
Well, I think I'm ready to give this a rating.
Yeah.
What are you feeling? I think this is solidly in the D tier.
This is a D.
All right, let's see. Hopefully our next movie is better than that one,
We'll see.
But I'm not so sure. I guess we'll find out. Next up, we have Battle of the Bulge, the final battle scene. Wow, that might as well be a documentary. That's exactly what the Battle of the Bulge
stunningly
looked
accurate.
like.
Yeah, not quite.
No.
The movie was shot in Spain. Doesn't look much like the Ardennes.
It looks nothing like it. They're in the
Snow
desert.
and bad
Welcome
weather
to my
is
channel.
noticeably absent during much of the film, including during the climactic tank battle, which didn't really happen to begin with. Post-war tanks, wrong environment, lots of post-war
good morning.
uniforms. Now, Robert Shaw's character, I think he's probably supposed to be a composite of Joachim Piper.
Yeah.
Kind of this evil SS sort of dude. This is a movie that most definitely relies on those sorts of tropes in every conceivable way.
Yeah, and it's a product of its time in a sense. What year did this one come out?
1966.
Okay. What do you give Battle of the Bulge?
This one gets a D.
I think it's right there with the 688 and the D tier.
It's when this movie came out, so it was filmed in something called Cinerama, and so that was a very widescreen panoramic form of cinematography. I'm sure it was quite the spectacle when you went to see it on a specialized screen. To see it in that sort of regard.
But none of those redeeming qualities can save it from the D tier.
No.
It's just fantasy.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, I'm ready to move on. And next up, hopefully we're coming out of the D tier because we'll be looking at Saving Private Ryan, the Omaha beach scene. All right, stark contrast to our last entry on this list. So tell us a bit about what we're seeing here. What are your thoughts on this beach scene that I think most of my viewers have already seen by this point and probably know what we'll have to say?
Of course, this scene breaks the mold for war movies. This becomes the gold standard of what war films can achieve in regard to their gritty realism. There were very few movies prior to this where you would see people who were just eviscerated by shells, their entrails hanging out, being blown in half. It set a new standard, and I think the one unfortunate thing about Saving Private Ryan, as it has entered the realm of popular culture and popular imagination, is that we've become desensitized to the punch that this had for audiences in 1998. And many war movies, Hacksaw Ridge among them, have tried to mimic the scale or the ugliness of all of this. For World War II veterans who went to see this in theaters, some of them had to leave. The Veterans Administration actually set up a help hotline for veterans whose post-traumatic stress was triggered.
And there are just so many small details included in this scene. I mean, on my page a lot we talk about the uniforms and the equipment and the weapons, and all of that is just nailed here. They do such a good job at portraying that. There are so many little details that easily they could have done away with. They didn't need to go into such historical depth with some of these things, but they do, and they're little Easter eggs for nerds like myself. But bring all that together, and it paints a very realistic picture of what those scenes look like in real life.
And you know, there's some little things that you can nitpick. I mean, they land in the wrong sector. As you and I saw personally on Omaha Beach, there's no bunker that looks like that, even though you can find it in a lot of subsequent video games.
That's true.
After all of this.
Yep.
You know, they get a few little things wrong. The obstruction beams are pointing in the wrong direction on the beach, but it packs quite the punch.
Yep. I'm ready to rate this one. I was ready to rate this one before we even put it on. For me, this one's in the S tier.
It's an S.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Even with the minor things, even my page, I love to point out those little things just because no movie gets everything perfectly correct. It's a great learning opportunity and a great way for people to connect with a piece of media that they've already seen in the past and learn something new. But they really get a lot right here.
Something I always stress to students too, you know, for as intense as this is, a lot of guys were on the beach for 6, 7, 8 hours.
Yep.
So imagine this times, you know, like 16,
Right.
you know, in regard to the length.
I think we're ready to move on here. Next, we're looking at Windtalkers, Saipan invasion scene. Lot to discuss here. Watching that one after Saving Private Ryan really highlights some things that stand out in this clip. So what stood out to you as we were watching that, Jared?
Yeah, uniforms aren't bad.
No, they're very accurate
yeah,
for the most part.
From a material standpoint, it looks good, but
fiery explosions to the max.
Much like Hacksaw Ridge, lots and lots of fireballs and people flying through the air.
Even just at the one part, the guy throws a grenade and it makes a giant gasoline fireball.
Yes,
of course.
absolutely. One thing I'll give this scene specifically credit for, at least it looks like the Pacific.
Yeah,
I mean, they filmed these scenes in Hawaii. Things are very lush, they're very jungle-like. Historically speaking, the biggest problem with this movie is that it's a movie about the wind talkers and the main character's a white guy who's not a wind talker.
Right.
If the filmmakers had made a braver decision, they would have picked an up-and-coming, perhaps lesser-known actor, or just make Adam Beach the main character, as he should be.
What do you think as far as the tactics we see here? Like, they love to include the Japanese, the bonsai charge. You know, everyone thinks of that, but here we have the Americans assaulting dug-in Japanese who immediately leave their fortified positions so they can run out in the open for a senseless charge.
Yeah, I mean, much like Hacksaw Ridge and 6888, everyone's clumped together.
Yeah.
And that's just, we're going to cram as many people as we can into the shot to convey a sense of scale. The tactical reality is often lost upon them when they make those creative decisions.
Right. All right, I think I'm ready to rate this one. How do you feel about this one in the B tier?
I would give it a C.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man,
I would give it a C.
Okay.
The scenery looks good, uniforms look good. I think the rest of it's a bunch of bunk.
Yeah, okay. I think that's fair. Why don't we give it a C+, since I gave it a higher rating. Okay, next we're looking at a bit of an older film here, a real classic war movie with Battleground, the German attack scene. A great scene there. Definitely a classic.
GI foxhole realism.
Yes, absolutely.
This was a movie that was written by a veteran of the Battle of the Bulge. He partially lived this movie, and just the dynamics of the squad. Even though it kind of veers into the realm of the cliche, because every war movie has the squad, so to speak. This one is able to stay fresh. They are complaining in every scene. They do nothing but complain. That is the most realistic and authentic depiction of GI life conceivable on screen. Just guys complaining all the time about everything.
Especially for the Battle of the Bulge, and this is such a great depiction of what the soldiers experienced, which was completely missing from the film Battle of the Bulge that we looked at when they're in the desert.
Yes, and so this scene in particular, much like the Bastogne and Breaking Point episodes in Band of Brothers, this was filmed inside. It's on a set because they wanted to be able to control the weather, accordingly. The uniforms, the equipment, it's immaculate. It is perfect. The actors did training, which is, the likes of Dale Dye later replicates. The actors here do things that you don't see in a lot of other war movies at this time. They're reloading their weapons.
Yeah,
their weapons malfunction. The bolts on their M1s are frozen. They flank the enemy. There's maneuvering.
Yes.
I would give it an A.
Okay.
If only for the reason that, it's not very violent, but the caveat to that is that in 1949, when this movie came out, you couldn't show gratuitous violence. It would never be allowed to be permitted in cinema at that time.
Yeah, I think I would have been comfortable putting this in the S tier as well, but I'm fine with it in A. I think you made a good point there. Well, I think that does it for this one. Let's move on to the final movie scene that we'll look at today, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this one in particular. A Bridge Too Far, rolling Allied assaults. All right. I think one of the biggest takeaways from this scene is just the impact of the artillery. And I think they depicted that really well here. That was notably absent from some of the other scenes that we've looked at. But this might be one of the best depictions of a creeping barrage that has come out of Hollywood.
Yep,
and we see the combined arms assault here, the planes flying over, and we have the creeping artillery barrage followed by the infantry and the tanks. it just all comes together to make for such a great scene here.
Absolutely, and just the amount of armor they have in this movie. And, you know, they were going through Europe and ripping these tanks off of monuments and out of community parks and putting new engines in them and repurposing them. And so, unlike the Battle of the Bulge, we have the correct tanks that are coming onto the scene.
US.
It was actually filmed on location. They filmed it in Holland. They went to the rivers. They went to the bridges. They filmed it in these communities, which just lends itself to such a great degree of authenticity.
I think I heard that some of the artillery pieces here were firing on live ranges with live ammunition, and through clever editing,
that's
they
cool.
just splice those in. So it really gives it that realistic effect.
That's cool.
And the artillery impacts are very realistic too.
Yes.
No big gasoline fireballs.
Yeah.
Here. Okay, are you ready to rate this one?
I give this an A.
Yeah.
A solid A.
I think this is solidly in the A tier. I mean, there's room for improvement. I don't think it's quite on par with the realism of Saving Private Ryan or Band of Brothers, the other S-tier scenes that we've looked at today, but it definitely earned its spot in A tier.
Absolutely.
It does a lot of things well. All right, so I think we have a pretty comprehensive tier list here. I don't think there were any huge surprises or underdogs that came up and got a great rating. Everything was pretty much as I expected it, but I had a lot of fun looking through those scenes and talking about what makes a good war movie scene. And I'd like to hear some of your final thoughts. What do some of the scenes that we put in the S tier and the A tier have in common that makes them so great? And what are some things that the D tier movies have in common that maybe they didn't do so well?
Okay, I would say some of the greater ones have a few common traits. One of which is a good sense of terrain. Does it look like the place where it is supposed to be set? Overlapping that, in quite a literal sense, is tactics. How do the characters move through that terrain? Because the landscape is very much a character in war movies. The land helps to tell and advance the story. And not only do the characters interact with the land, but it's also important to see how the characters interact with each other. Are these realistic scenarios, conversations, dialogue, friction that exists between them? Special effects most definitely play a part in all of that as well.
Yep.
I think we've come to the conclusion that the John Woo style fireballs don't tend to lend themselves to historical accuracy in combat situations. There's also the material culture standpoint. Do these troops look how they should look? How are they wearing their equipment? All of these things are ingredients that can make for a really bad soup or a really good souffle.
All right, guys, that about does it for today. To see more from Jared over on his Real History channel, make sure to click on his page. He is listed as a collaborator on this video. You can go see more from him. He does a lot of history versus Hollywood breakdowns. And if you're interested on more information on any of the scenes that we covered today, Jared has done full breakdowns on most
many
of
of them, yes.
Yeah, so you can have a lot of fun for the rest of the day watching those videos. But other than that, that's all we have for today, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Remember to avoid those napalm fireballs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Perhaps go make some legends.
Really messes with my head is that Embark is owned by Nexon, the same Nexon who got hit with a $9 million fine for one of the biggest loot box scams in the industry. The same company that got caught manipulating drop rates in MapleStory, pulling the carrot further away from players without telling them, and accidentally helped trigger the law that is now in place that requires these companies to disclose their drop rates. How the hell does that happen? How do we get one of the most ethically monetized games and one of the best games made in the industry from underneath one of the worst publishers in the industry? The only explanation that I've been able to come to is that these developers have real conviction, the kind that comes from a player-first design, not as a slogan, but as a line in the sand, because Arc Raiders doesn't really feel like a game that was optimized to extract value. It feels like a game that was willing to walk away if it couldn't be done right. How does that even happen? How do we have one of the best made games, one of the best bargains for a game, and also one of the most ethically monetized live service games coming out from the umbrella of one of the most notorious publishers in the entire industry? Either these guys are waking up and saying, hey, wait a minute, there might be money in well-made, well-monetized, fair games, or we have a publisher and a set of developers that just have a spine and just aren't putting up with any of their shit and demand respect and demand, well, freedom more than anything else. And seeing as these guys came from EA, I'm probably leaning on the latter when it comes to this one. I know these live service games can come and go, but man, I really want this game to stick around. I really want this game to succeed in a way that, honestly, I don't think there's a single other game that I've wanted to succeed as much as this one, outside of maybe Expedition 33 and Baldur's Gate 3. Okay, never mind. There's actually a long list of games that I like to see succeed, but this one as a live service game, I really want to see it stick, because I feel like both the players and the developers have struck pay dirt here. There's just so many great things on the player side. It's so well monetized. It's such a fair price. The way they designed it, I feel like the sky's the limit when it comes to content for a game like this. And it's one of the few games in the live service space, outside of maybe Warframe and I guess probably Guild Wars. A lot of my buddies really like Guild Wars. I'm going to have to try it at one point in time. But these guys really focus on the players they have. And that is a trend that has to catch on. I think it has to catch on. Looking at the way that a lot of these AAA games have been handling their live service, and not even just the AAA games, it's also just a lot of these live service games pretty much across the board. It's just not working. Whatever they're doing right now, how all of their focus for the most part is pretty much just on monetization and extracting as much as they possibly can as fast as they can. I'm sorry, guys, it's not working. Battlefield, brother, what are you doing? How do you guys fumble that hard? It's been months now. Your menus are still a mess. If you're going to be Hulu, you need to put in a search function. I'm going to tell you that right now. They need to just go back to having old school menus. I don't know why these companies keep trying to force this. It makes no sense to me. But all the issues, the progression issues that they have with Battlefield, it's been months now. How have you guys not fixed any of that stuff? They're so slow to act. And 9 times out of 10, when a lot of these companies are making changes, they're not making the changes that players are asking for. They're doing something entirely different. The AI microtransaction thing just blows my mind with those guys too, because it's just like, you guys literally just saw that happen to Call of Duty, and you guys thought, we'll get away with it. What are you doing? It looked like garbage. Why would you want to? Nobody's going to buy that stuff. It works against you. It makes people not want to use your microtransactions or look at your shop if that's the kind of stuff you're selling. These companies, man, especially on the live service side, they got to get it together. Something has to happen, because these games are just not hitting the numbers that they need to, and these guys are investing a serious amount of money and a lot of their future into some of these games. And I am very curious to see how much money these guys have been losing. Just looking at Call of Duty and Battlefield 6, looking at both of them, Battlefield 6, they were trying to say that that game was supposed to hit 100 million players. You're out of your mind on that one. That was before the game was even halfway decent. Even with it being halfway decent and also having a bunch of issues, it's still no way in hell. Are you kidding me? And Call of Duty, good Lord. The amount of money that they've been spending on those games over the years, and you know that they probably put a similar amount into Black Ops 7, and that just got flushed down the toilet. Man, a lot of these companies have completely built themselves based on their name, on the name of their company and on the name of their games. And it's getting to the point now where your name is no longer going to sell the copies of your games. What are you going to do when that name doesn't sell? I think some of these guys are learning that lesson right now. Anyway, I'm just happy to see multiplayer games returning to the way that they should be. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you guys for watching the video. I've been sick, man. I can't even hear myself. So I hope that this came out well. I've been sick for like the last week or so. Thank you guys for watching. subscribe to the channel, comment down below, like the video, share the video. Follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Kick. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
My satchel is full.
Well, they come as if from outer space in a variety of weird guises. Defender, Pac-Man, asteroids. To fans, they represent a challenge. But to critics, as Terry Drinkwater reports, they are a menace.
When you hear someone talking about controversial video games that caused backlash in the media, the examples that come to your mind are usually games that went too far with violence or delved into certain sensitive topics. In the modern era, this typically includes action experiences where the gore and aggressive gameplay are next level, or horror games in which the story uses disturbing references that might not be suitable for everyone.
We couldn't show the rest of the trailer because simply it's just too graphic and just really disturbing. I mean, we were watching it this morning and we all had our mouths kind of open. We could not believe what we were watching.
However, what if I told you that the most notorious video game in history is neither modern nor has anything to do with the common perception of action and horror in gaming? Well, this is the surprising topic of today's video, because unlike our typical style of discussing horror games and explaining their backstories, the game in question this time is not horror by definition, but the lore behind it and the mysterious concept that led to its creation are the scary parts that resulted in its infamous legacy. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. In the 1970s, video games started to spread and gain mainstream popularity for the first time ever, because these years saw the rise of commercial gaming and home console systems, which became widely available to the public. This decade was a cultural and technological phenomenon in every sense, and people were experiencing something that they never thought was possible. The most significant development was the release of the Atari in 1977, a console that you can use in your own living room and allows you to buy and swap different games, which was a feature that took the entire market by storm. However, in the 1980s, the video game industry began to shift, and people's eyeballs were more focused on a specific side of gaming that was considered more enjoyable and challenging, but also much more addictive. I'm talking about none other than arcade games. And even though they were already available in the 1970s, the 80s was the golden age in which they flourished and became the driving force in digital entertainment worldwide. For example, in 1980, the release of Pac-Man was a global sensation that broke away from the usual genre of shooters. The non-violent maze chase gameplay appealed to a much broader audience, including women and casual players, leading the game to become the first icon for the industry, because it was recognizable for everyone, regardless of their age.
Yellow creature gobbles dots while being pursued through maze by monsters. Believe it or not, those things are really happening on 200 electronic video games here at Chicago Fest. What you see here is part of a national phenomenon that we call high-tech rec.
Following this huge success, similar experiences were released later on, and people literally became obsessed with putting their coins in the machines and delving into a virtual world where their skills are put to the test. The reason behind this unique dedication is because arcade games at the time were the epitome of technology when it came to gaming, and they had certain graphics, sound designs, and controls that were far more advanced than home consoles. With that being said, in November 1980, the company Stern Electronics released an arcade game designed by the genius programmer Alan McNeil. But unlike Pac-Man, this one comes back to the popular formula of shooters. The game in question is called Berserk, and it allows you to control a green stick figure humanoid navigating through a series of randomly generated maze-like rooms. The objective is to destroy all the patrolling robots in each room and escape to the next, while avoiding being shot, touching the deadly walls, or running into a robot. But what made Berserk stand out among its peers is that the robots can speak and threaten the player with phrases like,
"The humanoid must not escape. Destroy the humanoid."
Now, if you're someone who's used to the modern standards of technology, you're probably wondering how this is impressive. But for people in the 1980s, this was actually the first time ever that they heard video game characters speaking in gameplay. The surprises don't end here, because the most enticing element in the game is something called the Evil Auto, which is a bouncing smiley face that shows up in certain sections. This enemy is invincible, and it can move through walls and chase you relentlessly, forcing you to either escape or die, especially since defeating it is impossible. Long story short, Berserk was unique, fun, and incredibly challenging. It offers completely unpredictable scenarios through its randomly generated mazes, while also adding a realistic touch by making the enemies speak, a combination that blew people's minds.
Certainly. National Theatre for you, my liege. Oh! Very funny. No, not now, love. It's busy. Pathetic.
However, even though arcade games were popular for being a source of joy and entertainment, they still had a dark side that was getting more and more worrying over time. Due to their innovative mechanics and exciting content, many people in the 1980s were two-faced, reaching a point where the games became a central part of their daily life. Simply put, arcade games were the definition of addiction, and the fans had a hard time moving away from the machines and going back to real life. But make no mistake, certain games were much more addictive than others. And if we had to rank which one reigns supreme in this department, Berserk would probably be the undisputed champion. The main reason is that the game's controls are very simple, making it easy for anyone to pick up and play. But the catch is that the gameplay is not a walk in the park, and it actually requires a high level of skill to complete all the missions. The fact that each room is different and any single mistake can be fatal gave players a powerful sense of thrill when they escaped, especially since the Evil Auto is a challenge that forced many people to give up. And if you're familiar with the rabbit hole of these games back then, you definitely realize that reaching a high score was the goal of every player who touched the machine.
John Jones made more than 20 million points after playing for 41 hours on a quarter. The record is nearly 26 million points.
So, when you combine a game that requires skills with a scoring system that highlights talented players, you basically get zombie-like humans who are stuck in front of a machine for hours, which is exactly what happened with Berserk. As a result, the media began a vicious campaign against these games, highlighting their damaging effects and how they're becoming a serious threat for the mental health of younger players, who developed a clear obsession with them.
We'll see health warning labels anytime soon on video games, but it is true that too much of a good thing can be hazardous to your health.
Linda, this is the next generation of video games, but these ones are not just for kids. There are a lot of grown-ups hopelessly hooked as well.
But just when fans were ready to push back against these claims and debunk them, something horrible happened. On January 12, 1981. A 19-year-old boy named Jeff Daly decided to go to his local arcade in Suffolk City, Virginia, so he could play Berserk specifically. Jeff was a huge fan of Berserk, and he played it on a regular basis. But this time, he played the game for long hours, and was eager to rack up as many high scores as he could before leaving the shop. He kept pushing and pushing until he reached the score of 16,660. But a few seconds later, Jeff began to crumple, and he suddenly fell to the ground, motionless. Everyone in the shop ran to see what happened to him, but sadly, it was too late, because Jeff was already dead at that point. According to reports, the boy suffered a severe heart attack that led him to collapse entirely in a short time, leaving him with no chance to seek help. The exact cause remains a mystery, but the main reason that was suggested is that Jeff may have had a heart issue that has never been diagnosed, and he probably went through sudden cardiac arrest that ended up being deadly. On the other side, some experts stated that stress and adrenaline can have a big role in such conditions, especially when the person is going through a very intense experience that combines concentration and excitement, which is exactly how Berserk works. Jeff's case stood out because heart attacks among teenagers are very rare, and the fact that it happened immediately after gaming created the idea that the game itself was dangerous. The theory was amplified by some scary speculations regarding the last score that Jeff achieved, which is 16,660. People who were invested in arcade gossip and urban legends could not help but focus on the number 666 in the score, which is widely known as the sign of the devil. These rumors spread like fire because in the early 1980s, moral panics about video games and satanic influences were already very common in the US. So when a coincidence like this was picked up, many people started exaggerating the details to prove that Berserk was actually cursed. With that said, Jeff's story is not fully confirmed, and there are multiple contradictions that make us unable to understand what really happened. What we know is that his death was initially reported in a gaming magazine called Video Ace in 1981, and later on, it was mentioned.
The era of the mighty has begun. Let each man and woman fight to be their own chieftain, to battle for supremacy until only one remains. The true Akura Makoi will be the last to stand, and their body will become the new world. Their blood will spring forth the new Karui that will inherit Rayclast. The end of time has come.
Okay, that's gonna be me. Thanks, Chieftain. Delusional.
Science won't save you.
Far away, far away.
Weakling. I've nowhere to keep that.
Mentioned in various other publications, but without clear verifications. Anyway, people eventually moved on, and the panic was slowly fading away, because the event was not properly documented and the details were mysterious. However, 1 year later, on April 3rd, 1982, an 18-year-old teenager by the name of Peter Bukowski woke up on a snowy morning and went to Friar Tuck's Game Room, a popular arcade in Chicago. When he arrived, he knew very well what game he wanted to play, and as you can guess, his favorite game was obviously Berserk. Within 15 minutes, he managed to get his initials on the high score leaderboard. To arcade culture, this is a big accomplishment that makes any player insanely proud. The boy was very skilled in the game, and he had experience playing it. But a few seconds after his achievement, he stepped away from the machine and went toward the doorway, before he suddenly collapsed on the ground. People did not hesitate, and they called help very quickly, hoping that Peter would be fine. But shortly after arriving in the hospital and spending some time in emergency care, the doctors revealed that he died. His death became a national story across the country because this time the case was documented by newspapers, authorities, and so many witnesses, meaning that it was very hard to ignore the event. The official diagnosis indicated that Peter has had a heart condition for some time, and it made him vulnerable to heart attacks, especially when he pushes himself to the limit. But even though doctors did not provide any external factors behind what happened, the public was so quick to think about Berserk. Nevertheless, the media made sure to publish headlines connecting Peter's death to video games by highlighting how the tragedy happened while he was playing Berserk. The fact that Peter's collapse took place in public in a busy arcade also meant that so many people saw the incident firsthand, which led to a growing panic and a lot of theories related to Berserk. Eventually, the autopsy results came out, and the Dr. Mark Allen stated that they investigated the possibility that video game stress was the direct cause of death. But he refused to give a final answer, and did not want to either confirm or debunk this claim.
Some argue that players get so hypnotized by these games that they have little time for anything else. How many hours do you play it?
I don't know, 6 or 7.
A day?
Regardless of any official statements, by that time, the media and the population had already concluded that Peter's death was clearly a result of certain dynamics related to playing Berserk, which is a reasonable conclusion if we're being honest. Following this tragedy, Peter Bukowski has become the first reported death in history that is directly related to video games. And even though there were some similar incidents before him, his death was the first to be fully documented and investigated. But for many, he was the second teenager who died while playing Berserk within 1 year, because many magazines were mentioning Daly and Bukowski in the same context, which cemented the idea that Berserk was somehow deadly. For the next few years, there were no reports of anyone facing the same fate as Peter or Jeff. And due to the big number of games releasing every month, players were too busy to focus on the old news surrounding Berserk. But little did they know, the disturbing phenomenon of Berserk was far from being over. On March 20, 1988, the night was unusually warm, and a 17-year-old teenager called Edward Clark was walking through the River Oaks Plaza in Chicago, a place where he often spent time with his friends. Clark was known among the locals, and after a few minutes of exploring the area, he decided to step inside Friar Tuck. And if you were paying attention to the video, you obviously remember that this is the same game room where Peter Bukowski died 6 years ago. Clark played multiple arcade games and was having so much fun doing so. But then, he wanted to move on to another machine, so he could play Berserk. For some reason, he found a few coins on this machine that were left by another player, meaning that he can use those coins to play for free, which is very normal in arcade games, because many players tend to leave the shop before finishing their sessions. Nevertheless, Clark was happy with this discovery, and he used one coin to start the game. As he was playing and enjoying his time, a 16-year-old boy started walking toward his machine, looking for nothing other than trouble. This boy is called Pedro Roberts, and he was very angry at Clark because, according to him, the coins were his, and Clark had no right to take them. Clark knew that these claims were BS, and that Roberts was clearly trying to enforce his dominance to intimidate him. As a result, he refused to leave the machine, and he told Roberts to back off, leading the argument to end at this point, because Roberts seemingly accepted his defeat. But just when everyone thought Roberts was stepping back, he suddenly escalated the dispute and pulled an actual knife to threaten Clark and his friends. This is when the staff in the arcade intervened, and they removed Roberts from the shop, hoping that this would be the end of this horrible conflict. But to be safe, the staff allowed Clark and his friends to stay in the shop for 10 more minutes, and before leaving, they advised them to walk in the opposite direction so they could avoid Roberts. The group ignored their advice, and this is very sad because this decision will have horrifying consequences a few minutes later. The staff had a sense that Roberts was not planning to give up by leaving the shop, and they were actually right, because after walking away, Roberts found a spot nearby and he was waiting. And since Clark and his friends decided to go in the usual direction, the confrontation with Roberts was only a matter of time. In a shocking moment, when Clark was passing by the alleyway, Roberts ran out and stabbed him in the chest without any hesitation before escaping the scene. Initially, Clark thought that he was okay, and he even refused to let his friends call the ambulance. But moments later, he collapsed on the ground and was taken to the hospital as fast as possible. Sadly, Clark did not make it, and he was declared dead upon his arrival, making his fate a complete tragedy. Roberts was then arrested, and he only served 11 years in jail due to his young age. But in my opinion, this sentence is laughable, and it doesn't give Clark the justice that he deserved. It simply means that the killer was set free in his 20s, while Clark's family and friends lost their loved ones forever. It's also worth mentioning that a witness...
As we speak, the ancestors heal her. Enough! The time for talk is over. Then let the ancestors bear I'm not ready. Challenge. A chieftain. Remember the stage. If you survive. I must be strong. The Cardinal. This is no redemption. Let them know the might of the Garui. I am the true Nakuramako. This is mercy. Tremble. You will suffer for that. Tremble! Lend me your strength, Tokuhama! This is not the way. What?
Do you know the way?
Done! I have done in your honor! So be it. I will save my people, myself! The power of the ancestors is mine! I need more. What have I done? It is over, Tabakai. Please, can you heal her? I believe so. Do what you must.
Father!
Mine to claim.
Forgive me, daughter. If you must not forget your mistake, I will use the weapon.
You will have your chance to prove the value of your word.
Return to with the weapon in hand.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. La 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 la. Oh, God. Zoom.
The Countess leads the Twilight Order, and we now know she has taken the beast to Orient. By using the weapon, the Karui have been cured of their blood fever and have pledged to aid our cause. But we need a sizable army for the battle ahead. It is time to rally our allies. We must recruit the Ezemites, the Meraketh, and the living vow that Doriani speaks of, then our siege may stand a chance. Now, I believe we have earned... It is time. One last journey. The Karui are already with us.
As it so happens, forces in reserve, suffice to say, I've always...
On we go, then. Go.
Updates. Makuru is saved. Tavakai apologetic. The seas are calm again.
What a dumb shit weapon. Staff.
Well met. Win or lose, make sure you come back in one piece.
Yes. Oh.
Hail. What can I do for you? Here's your gold. Survive.
Said that the stabbing took place inside the shop and not outside, but this was not fully confirmed. However, what caught people's attention the most is that the last game Clark was playing before his death was the one and only Berserk, and the entire debacle happened just when Clark was trying to play it, and not during his previous sessions. This coincidence revived the memories of Peter Bukowski and Jeff Daly, who died shortly after playing Berserk in the early 1980s. And even though Clark did not die as a result of a heart attack, it didn't stop people and the media from linking Berserk with death. Some said that the game is cursed and it had supernatural effects, while others speculated that the incredibly addictive nature of the gameplay has a strong impact on the brains of teenagers, which can push them to violence when they're not allowed to play. The intriguing part is that there's actually some truth to these claims, and Berserk is not completely innocent. When the panic around Berserk started back in the 1980s, it was relatively easy to dismiss the supernatural claims that some people spread about the game. But when it comes to the claims regarding its influence on the body and the brain, this is a serious discussion. For example, if you focus on the concept behind the gameplay, you'll find out that it's technically a loop with no limit, meaning that despite having a restricted program, your mind can still convince you that you can play for long hours without finishing all the possible scenarios. Although the mission is simple and it's all about shooting robots and surviving, every time you move to the next room, it's always a different challenge because they are randomly generated to keep you curious. You're pushed all the time, so you can see how far you can go. And just when you think you have won, the game slaps you with another scenario, forcing you to say, one more room. For the average player in the 1980s, this was not a regular video game. It was basically a magic spell that provided unlimited entertainment on a screen right in front of them. On top of that, the game is easy on paper, which allows it to attract as many people as possible. But once they become invested in it, they realize that they need sharp reflexes, spatial awareness, and skills, making it a personal challenge for players who want to stand out. Now, if you take all these elements and combine them with talking enemies and a bizarre bouncing ball that hunts you down, you get yourself an experience that feels like a drug. Every time you consume some, your body and brain want more and more, which can be very dangerous for certain teenagers. According to medical experts, the real issue is not the game itself, but it's actually the dynamic that happens while playing it. Berserk is an exceptionally intense experience because robots attack all the time, and if you hesitate or make one single mistake, the evil auto comes after you. This design forces you to panic and triggers a fight or flight response, which eventually causes your adrenaline to increase, your heart to beat faster, and your blood pressure to go higher. For healthy people, this might not be very risky, but for players with a vulnerable heart, this can be a recipe for disaster. When it comes to the brain, the excitement behind playing Berserk is also much more effective with teenagers than you think. Scientifically, the brains of teens are more sensitive to dopamine than adult brains. And when they get used to normal activities like studying or going to school, a game like Berserk can actually be overestimated in the minds of youngsters, resulting in a strong dose of dopamine funneling inside their heads.
You can't get hooked on it.
Are you?
Yeah. It keeps on making you play the game. Once you start to play it for a while, you keep on playing it.
Any normal person would want to beat the machine.
And you come back?
Oh, sure.
Again?
Oh, sure.
Again?
Yeah.
The doctors explained that this is why younger people are very comfortable with ignoring hunger, sleep, or responsibility just to keep playing. Because in their perspective, the game is more important, and self-control is not a priority. So besides messing with their hearts, the insanely enticing experience of playing Berserk forces many teenagers to become anxious and angry when someone separates them from the game, which might explain why Roberts lost his mind against Clark and was ready to kill him just because he was standing in the way between him and Berserk. And by the way, don't make the mistake of comparing the impact of video games in the 20th century with the modern era. Because trust me when I tell you that the excitement and obsession that video games caused in the 1980s are infinitely more powerful than today. The world at that time was dealing with something they don't fully understand. And for younger people, video games sometimes were a matter of life and death. I say this because the tragic stabbing of Clark was not an isolated incident. And if you think Roberts lost control very easily, then let me introduce you to Siobhan Jones, an 11-year-old girl that turned into a monster for a shockingly casual reason. On October 29, 1982, Siobhan and her friend were playing Crazy Kong at the Speed Queen Laundry in Ohio. And if you're finding this location to be bizarre, you should keep in mind that arcade machines back then were everywhere, even in places where you come to wash your clothes. Nevertheless, the two girls were very focused on the game, and their eyes were stuck on the screen. But at one point, a 14-year-old boy named Charles Moore stepped in and began to tease the girls and interrupt them. Siobhan was very angry about Charles annoying her while she was playing, and as time passed, the argument between the boy and the girls got more intense and escalated very fast, leading Siobhan to engage in a physical altercation with him. At first, everything was limited to pushing and yelling, but when Charles showed no intention to go away, the little girl grabbed a knife and stabbed him one time in the heart. This attack was enough to end the boy's life a few hours later in the hospital, and when police reacted by arresting the girl, they were baffled by her age. Some witnesses stated that the girl used the knife because she felt threatened. But what made the story more unique in the media is that the main reason behind her initial anger is believed to be the boy's verbal comments regarding her performance in the game and her score. During those years, it was widely known that younger players take scores in arcade games very, very seriously, which means that interrupting them or mocking their gameplay can actually trigger them and make them go crazy. With that being said, we don't really know if the girl was obsessed with the game or not, or why exactly she felt the need to stab the boy. But for society, those details didn't really matter, because the fact that a video game was involved served as fuel for a phenomenon called arcade panic. What many people fail to grasp about the Berserk incidents is that they became infamous precisely because they occurred during an era when arcade games themselves were perceived as a cultural threat in every sense. I'm not just talking about concerns over teenagers playing too much or video games being bad for health, but I actually mean that many people, officials, and even governments saw the games as a psychological disease that's destroying the brains of the youth and turning them into zombies.
In 1978, a new Japanese machine appeared on American shores. Although it looked innocent enough, this machine turned out to have some unusual powers. It kept kids mesmerized for hours, made teenage boys forget about girls, and even caused business executives to skip the 3-martini lunch.
In order to help you understand how significant this panic was, I need you to zoom out and see how the world reacted to video games back in the 1980s, when they began to spread like a virus. For instance, if we go to Asia, we'll find that in 1981, the Filipino president Ferdinand Marcos ordered video game machines to be dismantled and made a threat to operators to surrender their machines to the military within 15 days or face severe consequences. In other words, the Filipino government literally treated arcade games as a security threat that needed to be dealt with, even with force if necessary. Over the years, other countries like Malaysia followed a similar formula, and in 1983, they banned the use of video games in public spaces, and the move specifically targeted arcade games. The parents had a serious problem with seeing their children's minds getting swallowed by these machines every single day. The same sentiments were present in Singapore, where the government also cracked down on arcade games by banning their commercials and heavily limiting the access to machines in most of the country. The trend remained a reality in many parts of the world in the 1980s, and even in the United States, various cities and towns passed several laws against the arcade business. These laws included forcing operators to stop allowing minors to play without the presence of their parent, limiting the number of machines per location, and making it much harder for new shops to gain a license. Many critics at the time referred to the business model as evil, and they were very angry about how its main purpose was robbing you of your money, your time, and even your soul.
The Hewell's game ban ordinance will probably come up before the City Council next month. And next year, the U.S. Supreme Court will decide whether such age restrictions are constitutional, a decision that's vitally important to the entire coin-operated industry and Pac-Maniacs and everybody else.
When we look at these reactions from a modern perspective, most of us will consider them to be extreme, outlandish, and senseless. But at the same time, we can still see that the confusion had some reasonable basis. As I said earlier, many arcade games were indeed incredibly addictive, and in the case of Berserk, the dynamic of gameplay was disturbingly hypnotic for teenagers, reaching a point where the movements on the screen felt like they were intentionally designed to keep your eyes unable to look away. In fact, this notion led many skeptics back then to come up with a theory suggesting that some arcade games were used by the CIA for psychological experiments on the public, and specifically the youth. This resulted in the birth of a very infamous urban legend known as Polybius. For those who don't know, Polybius is a mysterious arcade game that was supposedly available in certain shops in Portland, Oregon, during the early 1980s. According to witnesses, the game was different than anything they had seen before, and the people who played it became obsessed very fast and were lining up to play again and again and again. They said that it wasn't just fun or exciting, it was also mesmerizing and soothing, and seemed like it made your brain lose control because of how organized the movements on the screen were. The problem, however, is that the existence of this game was never confirmed. Even though some people mentioned that they have clear recollections of its gameplay, and they gave descriptions of how it worked. Some rumors even stated that there were men in black suits who came to the arcades and looked like they were extracting data from the machines, but again, this remains a theory to this very day. But to be clear, this is not a theory that only some random Reddit users are discussing online. It's actually a big deal that the huge news organizations were also interested in investigating it and verifying whether the legend is more real than we think. Anyway, I don't have anything else to say for now, but if there's something we can learn from this whole mess, it has to be that you should really advise your loved ones to avoid certain video games if they have health issues. Despite the exaggeration of people's paranoia in the 1980s, it's actually a fact that intense games with high motion and fast reactions can be dangerous for both adults and teenagers if they are already suffering from a vulnerable heart. And by the way, believe it or not, one of the things that helped in normalizing video games over the last few decades was none other than home consoles. The rise of PlayStation and the astonishing innovation of domestic machines like Nintendo made it easier for people to abandon the arcade machine and enjoy their hobby at home. If you found
Ja ću puška držim u ruke, da ne bude kao prošli put.
Ma dobro. Sad mi ovdje fali Candleberry i zadnji. Vidjet ću šta će da mi da za zadnji jebi. Cash
Tu je. Yeah, it is the medical if you want a medical.
Disney Epic Mikey Rebrush.
Bukvalno prevodno. Metro stanicu. Gdje si ide? Pritisneš dugme E. Pritisneš dugme E. Ne znam, ne postoji lak način da ti objasnim, zato što moraš da igraš tu mapu da bi skontao gdje si ide. Nice. Why? I ask you, why? Why? Malo pa se jednoga izlomio kao konja pajsera.
Or make one single mistake them with token enemies and
restrictions are constitutional. A decision
3. They ban the use of video games in public. Fact that intense games, you'll find out that it's technically a loop. And Clark had no right. When Clark was passing by, he was okay. Clark, the justice that a witness.
As we speak, the ancestors heal her. Enough! The time for talk is over. Then let the ancestors bear witness.
opinion, lost.
This is mercy. Tremble. You will suffer for that. Tremble. Lend me your strength, Tokuhama. I have done. The power of the ancestors is mine!
It just works. Teraz.
This video informative.
Okay. Let me just do the quick shave. I'll be right back.
informative. Make sure to like it, and you can also join the channel and become a member if you want to support us. And in case you love to hear about horrifying urban legends that shockingly ended up being true, I advise you to watch our previous video. With that said, see you next time.
Remember, do not underestimate the power of PlayStation.
The NVIDIA leak happened almost 2 years ago now. Just about every game from Square Enix that was included in this list has been officially confirmed besides 2 games, the Final Fantasy IX Remake and Final Fantasy Tactics. This week, the reliable video game journalist Jeff Grubb has given us more details about the Final Fantasy IX Remake. He continued to reiterate that yes, the game is in fact coming. When giving us information about the scale of the game, he says to not expect something like Final Fantasy VII Remake, but he says that a better analogy would be to compare Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core to Crisis Core Reunion. He says the gameplay is still going to use the ATB turn-based system found in the original game, but he also reiterates that it's not just a simple HD remaster. What are you hoping for the Final Fantasy IX Remake? Do you think we're going to get a trailer soon?
Yeah.
Here's the great thing about Metal Gear, and the thing is that there's so many different snakes, right? You got a liquid snake, you got the other ones. When he slithers and he sneaks on the ground, when he's crawling on the ground, his butt kind of goes up and down, undulating butt. That's a real sexy crawl.
If Kojima was like, let's get on a boat and go to South America, would you do it?
Oh, hell yeah. He has not called me. My phone, I'm waiting for the call. Hideo, here's the great thing about Metal Gear, and the thing is that there's so many different snakes, right? You got a liquid snake, you got the other ones. When he slithers and he sneaks on the ground, when he's crawling on the ground, his butt kind of goes up and down, undulating butt. That's a real sexy crawl.
If Kojima was like, let's get on a boat and go to South America, would you do it?
Oh, hell yeah. He has not called me. My phone, I'm waiting for the call. Hideo, here's the great thing about Metal Gear, and the thing is that there's so many different snakes, right? You got a
Yeah, I'm finally back and I'm logged into the command center and we've got some Helldivers to discuss because while I was away, we got yet another dev update. And this one was, at least for me, just as concerning, if not more concerning, than our last one. With some genuine WTF moments for sure, which is what I want to take a look at today. Remember to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell as we dive once more into Helldivers. Very quickly, before we get into the heart of this discussion, we are currently nowhere close to finishing up this major order on Omicron to successfully extract 8.5 million times in order to secure the E711 to actually charge up and fire the Star of Peace, whatever that's going to eventually look like. The player stats aren't looking very robust either. Earlier this afternoon, we were logged on worldwide, but nearly 75% of those were actually hitting the bugs. But yeah, there you go. We'll get into the ins and outs of the new bug content like Osha Une and now Omicron, and how even when incentivized to play these planets and the new bug variants, it's not enough to entice divers to log on in force and tackle the major order. Alrighty, as you know, I was vacationing for the last few weeks, and just my luck, they released this last Democratic conversation, this time with Johann Pilstedt, on Christmas Day, which is when I was sitting in the airport starting my vacay. Now, Johann used to be Arrowhead's CEO, stepping down from that role to become their CCO, or Chief Creative Officer, and so he was there from minute one of the development of Helldivers 2 up until about late January 2025, when he went on sabbatical. So if there was someone who would know Helldivers, it's this guy. Now, as soon as this interview went live, I started seeing conversations all over the social channels, and of course your DM pings. I watched it cover to cover, at least 5 times, maybe more. And this thing has me just as concerned with Helldivers as when I watched the last one of these. That time was with Nicholas Malmberg, the designer.
Hope you're closed for the season, Raider. It's a good day for picking candleberries, but do beware of frostbite.
Hello, hello.
Don't shoot! Negative! Howdy!
Hello, hello.
Hello there! Howdy! Don't shoot! Hello, Raider. Howdy! Hey, don't shoot! Howdy! Don't shoot!
Hello, hello, hello.
Don't shoot! Thank you!
You need a key card, man? Village key card? You want that? No?
Hey!
Hello, hello.
Howdy! Don't shoot!
Hello, hello. Oh, I see.
Hey, Raider! Howdy!
You wanna try? Oh, you already opened this. Okay. Do you want a key card for our next village house, man? Hello, hello.
next hatch.
Oh wow.
Hey, Raider! Howdy!
Hello, hello.
Don't shoot!
Mushroom.
Hello there! Howdy! Don't shoot! Hey, don't shoot!
Hello, hello. Hello, hello.
Howdy!
Hello. Oh, there is a free rifle, Pharaoh 4, if you want it. Hello, hello, hello.
Howdy!
In a Raider cache, I didn't open this one. Right here.
Raider cache, here.
Yeah, hello, hello.
Are you friendly?
I do not shoot people first, but I can shoot back if you do that. Do you want Raider cache, man, for the loot? Right here.
No! Yeah,
A Raider cache.
This.
Nice, I have a... I was looking for it all this time, man.
Yep. Have you done the puzzle in the building? You know the switches and the basement? Yeah, there is a basement in the church. There is like 3 or 4 switches. You need to find them, and if you find them and press them, the loot room opens.
An arc orbiter is on
It's closed. It's closed. Hello.
10 minutes
Watch
to get
out.
there. I repeat, 10 minutes.
Robots. Yes. I'm trying to find the switches. 3 or 4 switches. They're really randomly all around the place. Watch for the Rocketeer, man. Rocketeer, the big guy with the rockets, flying drone above your head. Yep. Da, tako je. Very deadly.
That's the one ticket back to Speranza.
Ah.
Quick.
Quick death release, yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to that now.
Okay. Oh, yeah, let me show you, man. I found the switch. Come. Take a look.
Over here.
Here. Look. Look below. So that's a 1. You need 2.
Yeah, I know about that.
Okay, okay.
I didn't find it.
Yeah, it's a random. It's a random. Very random. Do you need any blueprints? I have a shotgun extended mag blueprint.
Medium gun parts blueprint. Here.
Nice. Oh.
I have all of those, you know, so. I'm a junk dealer, you know. Enjoy the loot.
Nice.
Yeah, don't die.
Oh,
Yes. No, why would I keep them if I have them, you know? Better share. Yeah, oh, I can open it for you. You want to come with me? To a hatch? I have a hatch.
let's run.
Head home at the reinforced hatch.
You have a hatch key. You're
Yes,
gonna
yes.
wait for the last minute.
I have a hatch key.
Exactly.
Oh, look, there are concerns. They run away.
No, I don't have ammo for it. It's fine.
No, dead.
Oh, no. I upgraded everything, man. Everything. Thank you. Might wanna go?
Hi, director. I also don't know when this actual interview took place, but as I listened to his responses, I thought that either A, when he walked away to take some time off, Johan really walked away and therefore had no idea what's been going on inside the game while he was away,
sure.
or possibly option B, whoever prepped him for this interview gave him wildly inaccurate information, because there was point after point that I would listen to his response and say to myself, what he just said is the complete opposite of what the devs did. And when you stop and say to yourself, this is the head honcho that ran the show something like 9 years when it comes to HD2, he's saying one thing, the studio did the opposite, that's concerning. So, here we go. Johan's interview ran about 35 minutes in published length, but you can see some cheeky cuts along the way, and I suspect he spoke for much, much longer, with the team cutting out portions, possibly when he got a little too hard into the paint on a subject or two. But Johan talked about all sorts of topics like the dev team priorities, how they balance and tune the game, future wants and thoughts on the game, and a whole lot more. And much like I did with Nicholas's interview, which I broke down in this video you see on screen, link also available in the video description, I wanted to go in now and create a series of pain points to highlight how counter some of these statements he's making are versus the reality of what we players have encountered actually in this game. All right, pain point number 1 is actually Helldivers itself and how it chooses to prioritize fun and chaos versus frustration and vice versa. And I know that's really a broad subject, but here's Johan explaining the studio's approach to this concept.
Of course, we holistically look at all of the feedback and make decisions on what we think is going to have the largest effect on the greatest amount of people. With that said though, we know that there's a lot of different voices in the entire community. It's not a unified singular entity. Instead, there's millions of individuals. And we need to look at this from the perspective of, well, there's a couple of people, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, that are saying,
oh, please, no. No. Well, it's fine.
Head home at the Overlook air shaft.
Hello, hello.
Don't shoot! Hey there! Howdy! Don't shoot!
Hello, hello. Do you need wires, man? I got like a stack of wires. Spare. Oh, I see.
Appreciated.
Thanks.
Hey, Raider! Howdy! Don't shoot!
Hello.
Orbiter is en route. The safe window is closing. You have 10 minutes to return to Speranza. I repeat, 10 minutes.
Hello, Raider. Howdy. Hey, don't shoot.
Hello, hello. Anybody out there?
Howdy. Hey, don't shoot.
Hello. Hola, hola. Oh, watch out, man. Rocketeer outside. Watch it, watch it. Get in, get in.
Appreciate it.
Yep, thanks. Yeah.
Raider. Here's a good one. Come on in. Okay.
I think I'm gonna be off to read some manga and to take a sleep. See you.